All right, today we're going to pop the cover off a true icon. We're going to dig into the incredible science and, the physics that's packed inside what looks like a simple cassette tape. You know that feeling, right? Holding that little plastic shell, seeing the tiny spools through the window, it just feels so simple, almost like a toy. But what's actually inside? Well, it's a marvel of precision engineering. So, how did this thing carry entire cultural movements? I mean, think about it. Mixtapes that were the soundtrack to your first love, bootlegs that spread new music like wildfire. This little box had a power that was just way beyond its size. And the answer? It's not magic. It's all about the physics of magnetism. And this was a huge, huge shift in technology. See, a vinyl record, that's basically a physical carving of a sound wave. You can literally see the grooves. But a cassette tape, it does something totally different. It translates sound into this invisible magnetic force. Okay, so if we're going to understand how a tape actually stores a sound, we've got to back up a step. We have to look at how we capture that sound to begin with. And it all starts with just a simple vibration in the air. This first step, this translation, it is absolutely everything. Your voice, a guitar riff, a snare drum hit, all of that is just pressure waves moving through the air. What a microphone does is act like a translator. It takes that physical pressure and turns it into an electrical signal, a voltage that's constantly changing, perfectly mirroring that original sound wave. And this is where that electrical signal is headed. The tape itself isn't just one thing. It's actually made of a few layers. You've got this strong but flexible polyester base, a binder that's kind of like glue holding it all together, and then the real star of the show, millions and millions of microscopic magnetic particles. This is the memory of the cassette. Now, these little particles are pretty special. They're what's called ferromagnetic, which is really just a fancy way of saying you can turn them into tiny, tiny magnets. So when you expose them to a magnetic field, they all line up. And here's the crucial part. They stay lined up even after the field is gone. They remember. And that simple fact is the physical basis for all magnetic recording. Okay, so we have our electrical signal and we have our magnetic tape. How do we get them to talk to each other? How does this all come together in the recording process? We just need to find a way to write the information from the signal onto the tape. Here's the play-by-play. That audio signal, right? That changing voltage, it gets sent to the recording head. And the recording head is basically a tiny, super precise electromagnet. As the tape slides past this microscopic gap in the head, the magnetic field literally jumps across and arranges all those tiny iron particles. It organizes them into a pattern that is a perfect magnetic snapshot of the original sound. Now get this. Just stop and think about this for a second. That incredibly complex process, all that magnetic writing, it's happening while the tape is just crawling along at less than 2 inches per second. I mean, that is so slow. And you can imagine that created a massive engineering challenge. And that's the million-dollar question, right? If you try to record audio directly onto the tape at that speed, it would sound awful. Just a distorted, muffled mess. The problem is, those magnetic particles, they just don't respond very well to small signals on their own. So, how did the engineers solve this puzzle? Well, they used this absolutely brilliant trick called AC bias. Some clever engineers figured out that if you mix the audio signal with a super high frequency tone, one you can't even hear, it acts like a lubricant for the magnetic particles. It's constantly shaking them up, which makes them ultra responsive to all the little details in the audio signal. This, right here, is the secret ingredient that made high-fidelity cassette recording even possible. All right, success! We've encoded our music as a microscopic magnetic pattern on the tape. But now, how do we get it back? How do we listen to it? This is where the beautiful, elegant symmetry of this whole system really shines. It's basically a perfect reversal. There's a core principle in physics that says, just as electricity can create a magnetic field, a moving magnetic field can create electricity. So think about it. During recording, electricity made a magnetic pattern. During playback, that moving magnetic pattern is going to make electricity. It is such an elegant two-way street. So as that magnetized tape streams past the playback head, its constantly changing magnetic fields create a tiny electrical current in the head's coil. And that current, guess what? It's a near-perfect replica of the original audio signal we started with. We've retrieved the memory. It's back.
Of course, it wasn't a perfect system. I mean, let's be real. The very randomness of those millions of little particles created a baseline noise floor. You know what I'm talking about, that classic shh sound we all know as tape hiss. And that's where technologies like Dolby noise reduction came into play. They did this clever thing where they'd boost the high frequencies during recording and then cut them during playback, which pushed that annoying hiss way down below the music.
But here's the funny thing. All of these so-called imperfections, the hiss, the mechanical nature of the whole thing, they actually contribute to something that people now find incredibly desirable, and that is the unique signature sound of tape. Yeah, it's not just one thing, it's a whole cocktail of artifacts. You've got the background hiss we just talked about. You have these subtle pitch variations from tiny little speed changes. The slow ones are called wow, and the fast ones are flutter, and then you have something really special called tape saturation. And this brings us to the magic word in all of analog audio, warmth. When you push a signal really hard onto tape, the magnetic particles literally can't get any more magnetized. They hit their limit. But instead of distorting in a harsh, nasty way, they compress the sound gently, and they add these musically pleasing harmonics. That is tape saturation, and that is the secret sauce to that classic, warm analog sound. You know, engineers were always chasing better and better performance, and that led to a real evolution in the tape itself. Your standard Type I tapes, the most common ones, used ferric oxide. But then you got Type 2, or chrome tapes, which gave you much better high-frequency response. And finally, you had the king of the hill, Type 4 metal tapes. These offered the absolute best dynamic range and fidelity the format could ever hope to achieve. Okay, let's just zoom out for a minute and appreciate the entire journey. It's so easy to get lost in one part of the process, but the cassette is a complete, interconnected system. It really is a symphony of electromechanical engineering.
And you can see the whole chain right here. It's amazing. Sound starts as a pressure wave in the air, it becomes electricity, then it becomes magnetism stored on a piece of tape, then it's turned back into electricity, and finally it returns to being a pressure wave coming out of your speaker. Every single step is a transformation of energy and information.
And you know, this is what makes it so profoundly different from how we listen to music today. We think of music on our phones as just abstract data, right? A bunch of ones and zeros in a file. But on a cassette, the music is a physical thing. It's a tangible pattern encoded on a moving object. It's not just audio data, it's magnetized motion. So the next time you see one of these humble plastic boxes, I hope you'll remember the symphony going on inside, the dance of the ferromagnetic particles, the magic of electromagnetic induction, and that precise mechanical ballet, all of it working together to bring sound to life. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?